And it's good to hear that music on this Wednesday afternoon. It's time for Helping Seniors of Brevard. And that music means we need to get introduced to you, the host of the show and the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard, none other than Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper, happy Wednesday to you. It's always good to be here on 90.3 FM WEJF radio. And welcome if you're listening to us online at wejf.net. And also hello to those who are the growing number of folks who pick this up as a podcast, because every time we do Helping Seniors Radio, we make sure that we put it out in the podcast world. So everything from, hey, Alexa, play Helping Seniors to iTunes Radio or wherever you go. You'll be able to take the good information of Helping Seniors along with you. And I was thinking, I want to go ahead and bring in our special guest for today. He is none other than the world famous Dr. Lee Sheldon, noted area periodontist. And I always call him father of dental implants, but you're going to learn today, there's a whole nother side of everything he does. He consults with practices all over the United States about how to do the best that they can for patients. And so our topic for today, Principles of Practice, is going to be a fun one. But before we get in, let me welcome Dr. Sheldon. How are you today?
Hi, Kerry. Good to see you. Good to not hear you. I guess the listeners don't know whether I can see you now or not, do they?
Maybe not. But, you know, I was thinking.
Remember the good old days when we used to be in the station all together? Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
That's it. Well, so, you know, here we are. We're a week and a half into our new year, and I hope we're all doing good about keeping our New Year's resolutions. You know, I was thinking that in the Helping Seniors world, Joe Steckler, our president and founder, put all this together. He started this out officially in 2011. So here we are in 2024. Been a while. And Dr. Sheldon, you've been there every step of the way, but I know from the Helping Senior side, our New Year's resolution is to do even more above and better of everything that we can in the world of helping seniors. As you know, we gained a lot of altitude in 2023 because Joe, through his connection with the folks, the kind folks, Dr. Delegdish and the Omni Healthcare Group, who were kind enough to allow us to get established our Senior Resource Center, which we rededicated and renamed for our president and founder. He thought he was coming to a board meeting, but we actually surprised him with a 90th birthday party talking about Joe Steckler, our president and founder. We renamed and rededicated the Senior Resource Center to Joe's Senior Resource Center. And Dr. Sheldon, it was great to see you there. Thanks for coming out and honoring Joe. What a great day that was.
That was great. And our local city council person, Yvonne Minus, was there, and she read a proclamation to him. Joe has deserved and has received a lot of accolades throughout the years, but I think this was special. Maybe it wasn't as special for him as it was for all of us who were there and have known Joe for so long and have seen everything that he's done. Anyway, he and Terry were there. They were legitimately surprised, and it was a great event.
It was so much fun. And we just released, by the way, the video out on that. So you can catch it on the Helping Seniors website, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. You can also see it on the Facebook page, Helping Seniors of Brevard, or you can find it on our YouTube channel, because yes, we have one of those too, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. And Joe made that comment as I was going back through and watching it. He goes, like, you guys got me. We're sitting back there trying to get organized for a board meeting. And then Nancy comes in and says, "Oh, Joe, there's somebody in the lobby that needs to see you." And sure enough, Joe thinks he's going to go out and help somebody, but we got him. It was fun.
That was great.
Yeah, it was good. So anyway, as we go into 2024, there are so many things. I just want to take a moment to ask you to grab a pencil. I'm going to give you a couple of dates, and then we're going to get on into today's radio show. But I really wanted to share two dates that you want to be aware of. One is coming up a week from Saturday. We're talking about the 20th of January. So January 20th, we are continuing. We got a little bit of help from the city of Palm Bay. This is through the CDBG program because, as you know, the housing challenge for seniors has been so challenging because seniors are really caught with fixed incomes but rising rents. And so to kind of help seniors know where they have their rights, we are continuing the popular series into 2024 called the 55 plus renters workshop for renters of Palm Bay. And yes, if you're outside of Palm Bay, space permitting, we will invite you in. But it's really a program put on through funding from the city of Palm Bay and the CDBG funds, which are actually federal funds. And it's designed to help us present what we call breakfast with an attorney. So attorney Frank Scaglione is going to be joining us, and he presents on the Florida Bar Eviction Prevention Project, which is very, very important, need to know information. If you're a renter, you need to understand what your rights are, what a landlord can do, can't do, what your remedies are if things aren't going the right way. And the people who have graduated from this program now, it's several dozen who've participated in these Saturday morning workshops, are really getting empowered to be able to do the best they can about that. So if you're interested in that, it's going to take place Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to 12 noon at Meemaw's Barbecue right there in Palm Bay. So you get a nice breakfast out of it too. We call it Breakfast with an Attorney. But if you want information about it, you just give us a call at 321-473-7770. And either Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, or Karen Warnlund, our information specialist, will get you the information and can RSVP you. It's absolutely free. And it's absolutely worth doing because information really makes a big difference. As Joe calls it, Dr. Sheldon, and you've heard this from Joe for all those years, even going back, he probably called it that in his Brevard Alzheimer's days. He always talked about the need for each of us to make our own aging plan, which is really just how we're going to confront the things that we might run into as the years add up. And so the second date that I want to share with you before we get into today's program is Thursday, the 25th of January. And that's going to be a special event at Joe's Senior Resource Center of Brevard. That's that beautiful space on the second floor of the Omni Healthcare building right there on the medical campus in downtown Melbourne. It's just a couple of blocks from the hospital and all the doctors' offices and things over there. But we are actually in the Omni Healthcare building. It's that 4-story building right there on Apollo Drive. It says Omni Healthcare on the side. We take up a great part of the second floor. In fact, we take over the lobby when we do these events. And this is going to be an ongoing thing. So you just want to put this on your calendar that every fourth Thursday of the month. So again, for January, it's going to be Thursday, January 25th. You want to make a plan to join us at the Senior Resource Center. Why is that? Because we are continuing the program that we do together with the help of Care Plus Health Plans and also Omni Healthcare itself. And each month is a Helping Seniors Health and Wellness seminar. So it's an hour and a half. It runs from 11 to 12:30. There's snacks, refreshments, all that's included. But the fun part about it is there's 3 different things that happen. So first, you're going to get a presentation from a program that Care Plus has developed over the years. They call it Program in a Box. But the theme for the 25th in January is going to be let's get off to a healthy start. Then the second thing that happens, we're going to have a lady by the name of Deidre Schubert, who is with a company called MIM Research. They're kind of groundbreaking, doing research on Alzheimer's, a lot of clinical trials and things going on. You might know her name from being the education and outreach director for a number of years at Brevard Alzheimer's. She's going to come and talk to us about the advances in memory care. And it sounds like there's actually some real reason to be hopeful looking down the road. But probably the most interesting part of that particular day is going to be the third part, which is a presentation called Dementia Live. Now, whether you participate in this directly as a participant, and you're welcome to do so, or you just want to sit on the sidelines and see what it's all about, it's fascinating. They came and brought this program to the Brevard Commission on Aging, I think in November, and it was absolutely eye-opening. What it is it's a simulation of what it's like to have to deal with these cognitive challenges, like what it might be like for a person who is on a dementia journey And so they simulate this through putting on glasses, headphones. You have to put on like some gloves and things like that. And then they try to ask you to do tasks. And what happens is it's really interesting because it gives you an insight into getting a little bit more patience and grace with people that you run into who may be on some kind of a cognitive journey like that. So it's absolutely fascinating to see. When we saw it at the Brevard Commission on Aging, everybody said this ought to be mandatory for everybody who's in like the medical practice or assisted living or home health care or anything like that. Everybody really needs to understand what it must feel like for that person going on that journey. So again, that's going to be Thursday, January 25th at Joe's Senior Resource Center, Brevard, 11 a.m. to 12:30. We ask if you can RSVP, so call us at 321-473-7770, and we'll get you signed up for that. And so those are kind of like the announcements. And Dr. Sheldon, with that, I want to share not only, I jokingly call you the father or grandfather sometimes of dental implants, but you've also built a practice that has really become known in Brevard County. It's Dr. Sheldon and Furtado, Solid Bite Dental. And you've really led the way on so many areas of dental treatment, but your expertise goes well beyond that because literally practices around the country call you and ask you for help about how to do the best practice they can so that it's good. It's a good operating business for them, but it's really taking care of all the patients that they're working with in the right way. So we titled today's show Principles of Practice. And we have the principal himself, Dr. Lee Sheldon. How are you today?
And let's get our spelling correct. Principles of Practice was a PLE. The principal himself was with a PAL. And Kerry, I'm doing well, but I've got to tell you, before we start this, I've got to put in the disclaimer that we do every once in a while.
Sure.
The following opinion is mine only. You do not accept any advice from me as advice on medical care. Please check with your own doctor for any health needs that you have.
That is so wise because I think we're going to have a great general discussion, but very much, like every first week of the month, another great friend of helping seniors, elder law board certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. He was on the radio with us last week. And he always, we always talk about that. He gives some great information, but it's not a substitute for you sitting down and going through your particular situation and getting legal advice that's correct for you. And I guess that's the same point here, right? We're going to talk some general good things, but this is not medical advice for you as an individual.
It is not medical advice for you, but you're going to hear some controversial stuff. And if there were people next to me, they may not agree with what I have to say. So hold on to your seats a little bit, because understand that my viewpoint may be a little bit different from what you may conventionally hear. Is it good to have multiple viewpoints? Of course it is. That's how I made my career. It's also, as you know, I had an amateur type of broadcasting career as well, and I took often at least sometimes a different point of view from what my guests would say. So understand, I've been here, I've done this. People have either taken my advice, not taken my advice, but all advice should be taken with a big grain of salt. Yes, go see your doctor about any advice that you have for your health needs, even though I'm going to be addressing some things today. So, but none of my word is gospel here, and none of my word should be taken without medical advice.
Right. So with that having been said, Dr. Lee Sheldon.
So let me give you a story here. Let me give you a story. I know you want to ask me some questions. I'm not even going to let you.
Okay.
So there was a time, Kerry, because we're going to talk 11 principles of practice. By the way, there are actually 20 principles of practice that I gave to my my colleagues and to those who subscribe to our program, our consulting and our mentoring program. And so 20 were received, and I said, all right, 11 are applicable to the consumer. So I wrote down 11. The first one being your power to observe is at least as crucial as your power to treat. Now, that is going to doctors, but frankly, it's also going to you as the patient, your power to observe. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that you know your own body better than I do, better than any doctor does. That doesn't mean that a doctor can't provide you with good advice, and the doctor is going to do objective testing in order to be able to see whether you fall within the norm or whether you don't. But your observation of how you're improving or even how you're deteriorating is the most important thing. Those of us, when we were trained, were taught that if you listen to the patient long enough, you'll get the diagnosis just from listening. Not from all the fancy blood tests and all the other things we do, just from listening to the patient.
Wow.
So understand your notes of what has occurred, your observations, your journaling, your keeping a diary of what's occurred is going to be very important both to you and to your doctor. I'm going to give you some examples later on, but understand that's first, your power to observe. Now, when we're looking at doctors, it's also your power to observe. And I'm going to tell you a story here. But by the way, ask me some questions before I give you a story. Are there any questions you have, Kerry, with regard to what I just said?
No, I think it's important, and I'm so up with what you were just saying is kind of like point number one about the idea that if you are paying attention, like be present in the moment, you're going to learn a lot, just you as the patient, and that's half of it is getting good communication going about that, right?
It is. We got to be careful on how we spend our time with our doctors, because our doctors only have a certain lot of time, and because you're not paying the doctor directly, but the insurance company is paying the doctor, the insurance company is really low on reimbursement. So understand that when you're talking with your doctor, this is not time for a conversation and to talk about everything that's occurred in your life that has nothing to do with your care. Come with a list. Come with something where you're saying, all right, I've got this, I got this, I got this, I got this. Here are my observations. Speak. Remember, we talked last month, and we talked about the fact that that in the healthcare setting, doctors will give you about 11 seconds to speak before they interrupt you.
Right.
So let's talk about your power to observe. And this came from the beginning of my practice. And I teach this, and we had to cancel it because the professor is sick. But I was going to give a lecture to a university on Thursday this week, and we'll put it off till the spring when we can all get together again, which is fine. But I'm going to be speaking to university, and he said, I want you to talk about your observations of non-surgical treatment for periodontal disease, so specifically for periodontal disease. So here's the story. When I went into my residency and graduated from my residency, the standard treatment for periodontal disease was non-surgical treatment to get the gum tissues as healthy as possible, followed by surgical treatment in order to be able to correct the disease problem. Okay, so that was standard. People would come in, and it was called initial preparation, and then surgery. That was the standard way of treating. About 7 years into my practice, I studied with somebody out in Phoenix, Arizona, Dr. Perry Ratcliffe, who was a periodontist, former president of the American Academy of Periodontology. And he, at that time, was my age now, 73. And I observed what he was doing, and he was doing all of his treatment non-surgically, and his hygienists were doing all the treatment. So I said, all right, I've seen it work. I've gone to his office in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've seen what he's doing. I've observed his patients who had been treated this way, not just at the time of treatment, but I observed them a few months after treatment to see how they were doing. They were doing just fine. I came back to my office, and I announced at a Christmas party at the Strawberry Mansion, which is now the Mansion, I said, we are going to do nothing but non-surgical treatment for the next 8 months. Actually, for the next year. I only did it for 8 months. But we're doing no surgical treatment at all unless the patient has an emergency. And if the patient needs surgery, I'll do the surgery for nothing. So the patient will pay me for non-surgical treatment or for the entire treatment, and we're just going to observe and see how the patient heals. And I did 4 free surgical procedures in an 8-month period of time in a very busy periodontal office.
Wow.
First part, I was able to find a technique which involved non-surgical treatment. It allowed my hygienists to be able to be much more effective than they were. And every one of those patients, except for 4, healed and didn't need my surgical intervention. Your power to observe, and this is what the professor at this particular university wants me to talk about. Because, as surgical type of people, we learn all the current surgical techniques. And if somebody comes up with something about bone grafting or growing bone around teeth, all that kind of stuff, that's the exciting stuff. That's the stuff we have fun at. But we lose sometimes the ability to observe patients because we're so excited about the procedures we can do. And the question always is, and I can extend this to medical as well, because I've got my own story, my own medical stories as well. The power to observe is more important than anything else. It's your power to observe is more important than your power to treat. And that's what we have to look at. There is that excitement that the doctor has of saying, I can fix you. And it is exciting. When we graduate from school, boy, are we excited. We know how to fix things that we weren't able to fix before. We've got skills, we've got talents, we've studied with the best people. Boy, we want to apply that. Understand that that is the viewpoint of a doctor going in, or it could be, and often is. And sometimes there is an opportunity, and discuss this with your doctor, but sometimes there is an opportunity to just take a deep breath and observe how you're doing before you make an interventional decision.
Yes. Well, Dr. Lee Sheldon, we're talking with Dr. Lee Sheldon of Dr. Sheldon and Furtado, Solid Bite Dental. We're talking about principles of practice, and we're going to continue with the second half of the show here in a bit. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Sheldon, if people are encouraged. I mean, you're an author. You wrote a book called the Ultimate Mouth Manual. If people want to get in touch with your office, what's the number? Maybe they just want to see if they could get a copy of the book or keep this conversation going.
Sure. Call the office at 321-259-8000 and let them know you've heard us on Helping Seniors of Brevard. And there's a special program for you, $50 paid to Helping Seniors of Brevard, and you get all the x-rays, including CT scan, at no charge, including the best dental examination you'll ever get.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I really enjoyed personally reading the Ultimate Mouth Manual because it really gave me an insight because you were able to write it in a way that wasn't very, I don't know a better way to put it, doctorese. So again, Dr. Lee Sheldon with Solid Bite Dental, Dr. Sheldon and Furtado, longtime fixture right there on Sarno Road. So we're going to be back with the second half of the Helping Seniors radio show. We're going to continue the conversation, principles of practice. We've got 11 points we're going to cover today, and we're excited to help you get well ahead on the wellness and things that are going to be helpful for you in 2024. See you in a minute.
And we're coming back on the second half of Helping Seniors of Brevard for this Wednesday afternoon. I'm John Harper. Let's reintroduce the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard, and, by the way, the executive director, none other than Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper. Good to be back for the second half. We always call it our Wednesday lunchtime gathering, and here we are already on the second Wednesday of 2024. It seems like we were just clearing the New Year's holiday, but we've got a great show quite in progress right now with Dr. Lee Sheldon, who's noted area periodontist and founder of Dr. Sheldon and Furtado, Solid Bite Dental. It's that well-respected, well-known practice right there on Sarno Road. And Dr. Sheldon, we've been talking about something that really transcends, goes actually well beyond simply dental practice, periodontal practice, and those kind of things. We're talking in general principles of practice because you yourself are a sought after individual. You speak at industry conferences and things like that. Plus, you have a whole side of what you do that helps other practices around the country learn how to do the best they can to really super serve their patients. We spent a lot of time in the first half of the show talking about, I guess I would call it principle number one. The power to observe is at least as crucial as your power to treat. And you said even from a patient's point of view, it's so important that you observe what's going on and figure that out if you're going to have the best possible assistance in the things that you're after medically or dentally, as the case may be.
I think that's true. And every other, the other 10 principles have very much to do with that first one, your power to observe. Your power to observe. And whether we're talking about doctors or whether we're talking about you as the patient, your power to observe is as important, if not more important, than anything else.
Yeah. So with that kind of as a backdrop and continuing this whole conversation along, this is actually taken from an article that's going to be in the February edition of the Senior Scene magazine. As you know, helping seniors of Brevard now into our, let's do the math, 2014. So we're into our 13th year since Joe Steckler, our president and founder, officially got us organized as a Florida nonprofit dedicated to informing, educating, and connecting seniors and their families with information that will really help them on the development of their own aging plan. And so, Dr. Sheldon, I think the wisdom that you're sharing today helps us get the most out of that very precious time we have with a doctor. We always joke, like, maybe you're fortunate if you go into like a medical doctor, you get maybe 8 or 10 minutes. And so, like you were pointing out in the first half of the show, you really want to make that time count.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And the doctors want to make that time count too. We're going to talk about a little bit more about what the doctors' barriers are. And the doctors have several barriers, not the least of which is insurance reimbursement. So understand everybody's working under the gun and therefore sometimes we're limited in what we can do. So the more you can assist the doctor, the more you can take care of yourself, the better it's going to be for you and for the doctor.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think point number 2, if I'm looking at this correctly, I like this. The patient wants to heal. We do the minimum necessary to allow that to happen. And I really like the sound of that, right? Because you don't want to go through medical or dental things that you might not need to unless it's really the best path to getting to that healing, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's not like you're replacing a broken windshield. It's not like you're putting up a set of gutters. You're not doing that. You are attached to a living human being, and the living human being, you can make that yourself better or worse depending upon a lot of the things that you do, a lot of the things that you eat and drink, and the way you take care of yourself. And so understand your ability to heal is going to be increased by you doing the right things. And, intuitively, we know what the right things are. If not, just read a book, any book on health, and you'll see some consistencies here. But yeah, take care of yourself. And that means we do the minimum that we have to do, because the patient will heal. If there's some intervention that's necessary, we do as little as possible, not as much as possible, but as little as possible. I mean, sometimes you need a major procedure. Don't get me wrong. I live on major procedures in this office. We have people that are badly broken down. Still, you want to do as little as is necessary in order to be able to allow that body's resources to be able to heal.
And that kind of number 2, it kind of tags into number 3, which you preach a lot about. I'm using that term, because we've done so many shows where you talk about are too many dental implants being placed and are too many teeth being extracted, which is kind of funny considering that is your business and you're leaders in the business. But I like how you wrote this. The judgment to know when not to treat has equal importance to the treatment itself. The key is to, I guess, probably understand which is the better option.
Now, this occurs often in our office. Patients are here for second opinions, and they see us for second opinions for a number of reasons, not the least of which probably is because I'm old. But they do come in, and there are a number of times when I say, hold on there. All we have to do is this, or hold on there, maybe you don't need this treatment at all, or here are the consequences of treatment. Do you understand that? So the patient can make an appropriate decision. Just because we can do a procedure doesn't mean that we have to do the procedure.
Yeah. And you've talked about that. Like I said, I remember the first time we did, it's a TV show, and all these TV shows and radio shows and articles that you've contributed. I just want to remind listeners, if you're new to Helping Seniors, everything is available. We archive and make available. We kind of call it the Helping Seniors Aging Library, but there's so many materials in there. You can access them at the helpingseniorsofbrevard.org website. You can find the radio and TV for sure on our Helping Seniors of Brevard YouTube channel or our Facebook page. And I just remember you talking about, too many dental implants being done. And I thought that's interesting because you really kind of pioneered the field, but it kind of also dovetails with the fourth principle of practice, which you outline, which is the ability to fully plan and communicate a treatment plan is a key to being a premier advisor to the patient. So in other words, like when you go to the doctor, do you understand what they're suggesting as the correct steps, right?
That is the reason why primary care medicine is so important. And it's also the reason why you have to have a great primary care doctor, not for what the doctor is going to do, but for the judgment that that doctor has based on the consultations that he or she has gotten from other specialists. Mm-hmm. You need an advisor. Otherwise, you can be your own advisor. And frankly, often you have to be your own advisor. And that actually was the first three principles here. You have to be your own advisor. You're going to be a better advisor for yourself than a lot of people who are disinterested or only seeing you only once. But if you can find that great doctor who can assist you in helping you make decisions, understanding that there are positives and negatives to every decision you make. Frankly, there's positives and negatives to the reading of every blood test you do.
Yeah.
That's how, we have, there are guidelines when blood tests are done, but there's sometimes, and that I'm not going to get controversial here, but at least I'm not going to public on this. But there are some tests that I personally refuse to run because I know what the data is behind those blood tests. And frankly, that data behind those blood tests has more to do with promoting procedures than it has to do with anything that has anything to do with health.
Wow.
So
right.
Understand if I'm saying that, and where did I get that from? Often it was from reading. Finding a good book on a particular disease, on a particular blood test, on a particular a particular health concern is very, very important to me. I just went through that decision myself. I went to a particular doctor. He said, yes, that's right. You need to have it operated on. Let's schedule it. And I had it all scheduled, Kerry. I had all scheduled. It was going to be done 2 weeks ago. And then I went to the literature and I saw there was a 1% to 2% complication rate if I don't do the procedure. And there's a 1% to 2% complication rate if I do the procedure.
Wow.
You think I canceled that procedure. And here I am, so understand that. And by the way, you can all go to the literature. You can, and by the way, you're not necessarily reading consumer publications. You can go to PubMed, PubMed.gov, G-O-V, and you can have access to the medical literature. Oh, I don't know how to read the medical literature. Guess what? Yes, you do. Have a dictionary in front of you. It's not that complicated. You'll be able to get the preponderance of the data in the medical literature and you start doing your own research. I know it's a little difficult and I know, I want to get some advice from somebody else. Yeah, we do. So do I. But sometimes it's better for you to go to the source and for you to study it yourself and spend a little time before you decide to make a decision that could permanently alter your circumstances, your health circumstances.
Yeah, and that everything you're talking about kind of fits into point number 5, which I've heard you talk a lot as we've done radio and TV, and you've contributed columns into the Helping Seniors newsletter in the center section of Senior Scene magazine, and that is prevention. is a lifestyle physical, and you talk a lot about nutrition discipline as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Just there was a book that I was trying to think of, Kerry. The book that I'd recommend that every consumer read is a book called Overdiagnosed. You can get it. You can get it on Amazon. Read that book. It'll give you a whole idea about conventional blood tests and conventional tests and observations that occur where you think they might be important. And he puts it into perspective and shows you what the positives and negatives are of each of those diagnoses before you make that decision. It's a great book, and it's written for the consumer.
Yeah. Well, point number 6, I thought it's funny because you and I just had done a radio show very recently on this, what I consider something very near to this topic. It was the show was about how to find the best medical help. And one of the tips that you gave was you look like if you needed a surgeon and you're trying to figure out, I don't know who the best surgeon would be. You might talk to people who are, working in the hospitals, maybe in the nursing side of it or things like that to get those recommendations. But you point out at point number 6 of principles of practice is learning alternative and complementary disciplines as a resource to elevate your understanding of that situation. Am I saying that the right way?
It's true. You're saying it the right way, and it actually falls in with number 5 as well, which is prevention as a lifestyle, physical, and nutrition discipline, as you said. Medical care is only one of several cares that are available for the body. It happens to be the primary care in this country, but if you go into other countries, you would find that other cares are just as popular and maybe even more popular or more taken advantage of. If you go to China, you're going to see an acupuncturist. You're going to go to India. You're going to talk to somebody with Ayurvedic medicine, all of which are considered complementary or addition to medicine here, but actually is the primary source of medicine and decisions in other countries. It doesn't mean that conventional medicine doesn't have value. It does. But take a look at the other disciplines that are available and see what value those have too. Certainly in my own circumstance, my diet and lifestyle actually has changed as I got older in order not to stress my body so much. So that example, I was taking antacids on a regular basis, I'm not taking antacids nearly as much anymore, maybe 10% of the time, because I changed my diet. It isn't that you have an antacid deficiency. It means that you're doing something to your body that your body can't tolerate. So find out what your body can tolerate so you don't have to take the drug. And that's what's happened to me.
Yeah.
See, I'm applying these things to me. This is not coming from someplace else. This is coming from Lee Sheldon and Lee Sheldon's family, having experienced a number of things and having been on the inside for a number of years. So understand. I treat myself this way. And so far, I'm doing pretty well. Now, I'm 73. I'm not that old yet, but, I'm getting there.
I was smiling. There was a comment. I mentioned we just had Joe Steckler's 90th birthday celebration, and we just posted out the video from all that on our Helping Seniors Facebook and such. And there was a line that you said to you told Joe happy birthday. He goes, "Well, you're not all that much farther behind me, but hey, listen, it was cute. It was cute." But this actually brings us to point number 7. Which I thought, it's often been said, God gave us, 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them accordingly. But point number 7 is listening. And that kind of goes right back to your power to observe, right? Point number 1.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I think your analogy was spot on. Yes. And this is actually going directly to doctors. Sometimes you're explaining what's going wrong. You keep on explaining. You're trying to explain it. For peace sake, the patient has been thinking, and this is going directly to doctors now, but it falls in how a family relationship can be. It falls into how a boss employee can be. Listen first. The person has been going through a personal experience. Let that person talk. and just say, mm-hmm, or say, I got it. Is there any more to that? Let that person discharge everything that's in her head, in his head, get it all out. And then you as the doctor, or I as the doctor, or I as the friend, or you as the friend, then have the opportunity to introduce a new point of view. But you'll never be able to introduce that new point of view unless you've listened to what that other person's point of view is first.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and number 8, kind of these, as we go through this list, a lot of these seem commonsensical, but oftentimes we don't apply the common sense we should. But number 8 is seek advice as you need it, but be your own advisor. And I know that was originally written for you as, for somebody who's actually practicing, but even as a patient, that makes good sense.
Well, it is, because everything we're listening to is authority figures are saying this, authority figures are doing that, or this authority says this. Well, I've known a lot of authorities, and over the past 3 years, you've learned a lot about authorities as well.
Sure.
Authorities are there because they supposedly know the material better than you do. But then we see that those authorities might have something else involved in their opinion that has nothing to do with your health. So therefore, you've got to look at it. You can't just say, well, the doctor said, the doctor said, the doctor said. You don't know what the doctor's background is. You don't know what the doctor's read. You don't know what the doctor's heard. You don't know what the pharmaceutical sales rep may have said to the doctor an hour before. You don't know any of that. So take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and figure out alternative points of view and look it up and just think about it. And then you make the decision. It's not the doctor said, it's all right. Now I've considered all the variables. I've learned all the variables. Now I'm ready to make the decision. And you may agree with the doctor. Just make sure that you're understanding where that's coming from and make your own decisions.
Yeah. Well, point number 9, again, I guess this was theoretically, specifically from the doctor's point of view, but it just seems like good general practice, because it's often been said, the sweetest sound in the whole world is the sound of your own name. And you point out as number 9, address a patient by name.
Yeah, and that's address a friend by name. I can't remember names. It's awful. And sometimes I have to study if I know who the guests are going to be at a party. I study in advance to make sure that I've got those names down. But yeah, hello there is hello Kerry is a lot better than hello there. So yes, and yes, for somebody who does a lot of interaction with a lot of people in the public, I have to do that. I have to study it too. I do consulting. I was with one of my clients, and I was just observing what he was doing in his own practice. And he's been in practice for many years. And he was saying to his patients, hello there. Hi, how are you doing, sir? Or whatever it was. And I took him aside and I said, what's the patient's name? Well, I'll be talking with him after this radio show today, so I'm going to find out. But the last time I talked to him, he said, I'm calling everybody by name. 3 or 4 times when I'm in the treatment room, I'm calling him by name. So he's taking it to heart.
Good. Well, number 10, I like this one. And I'll ask you to kind of frame this up from our perspective of maybe the person going in for the exam. But you said include the patient in any office discussions.
It's true. We get into relationships with our staff members, with the doctors, and we start talking to other doctors about things that have nothing to do with the patient, or we can't include the patient. And the patient is just sitting there in the chair. And what's the patient saying? What about me? What about me? And by the way, this happens in hair salons too. Include your customer. Make sure that the person you're taking care of, make sure that person is primary in your discussions. And you can have a discussion about anything and include the patient or include the customer in that in order to be able to make the customer feel better. And you'll develop loyalty, and that customer will never look for anybody else because that person is being included in every discussion.
I was thinking about that because I have definitely experienced times when I've been either in a medical situation or taking somebody to a medical situation, and all of a sudden, there's a couple of medical professionals in the room. They start talking. And you're like, well, how does this affect us?
Yeah.
Does this affect my mom? Is this something we should be in on this? And it's funny because it's commonsensical, but oftentimes we miss things that are commonsensical. But let's talk about number 11. I thought this was interesting because it makes sense. But you say create lists. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. There is a task to be done. And particularly if you're working with employees, but also if you're working at home, if you start waiting to think about it and then decide it needs to be done, then you may not think about it for a couple of days. It seems so simple, and those of you who do it understand it. If you create a list of the tasks that you need to accomplish and the time, if you go farther, the time you should be doing that task, if you create a list every day, you'll get so much more done so much faster. So within an office context, because with consulting and even in our own practice here, there is a list to do for every person that's in this office. And because it's a large office, we have well over 20 people here. Each person has a list of tasks that need to be accomplished every day. So there's an opening task. There is how we do a surgical task, and there's a list of procedures that are done, and we go by that checklist. And the more things that we have on a checklist, or if we're talking about a to-do list, or a shopping list, whatever that is, you're going to get more done faster. Just think about going to the market and having a list versus going up and down the aisles in order to be able to say, oh yeah, maybe I need that. Maybe I need that. You're going to spend more money. You probably don't need a lot of the things that you are shopping for. And you'd get out a lot faster if you knew that you're going to aisle 4 and aisle 7 only, and you get everything done there and then get out and go on to your next task. Lists are extremely important for consulting. And the reason they're so important for consulting is because they work. And whether you're talking about a shopping list or whether you're talking about how to do a particular procedure, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, all the way to step 10, if we have those all written down, then it's going to get done the same way every single time, which means that we reserve our special thinking for things that are a bit out of the ordinary, emergencies or something like that.
I was just taking your shopping analogy about the list. I was thinking, it may be more fun to drift up and down the aisles and you come home with a lot of stuff that you didn't anticipate. But the other side effect is you probably get home and said, oh, I really did need to pick up that. And I forgot that. So I think these are all great tips. We're talking with Dr. Lee Sheldon, noted area periodontist with the founder, actually, of Dr. Sheldon and Furtado Solid Bite, the dental practice that people have relied on for years for periodontists, for periodont, because that's your background, periodontics. And but now Dr. Matt Sheldon, your son, is a great general dentist, and Dr. Michelle Furtado is also a great periodontist. So you've got all kinds of abilities and skills there. If somebody wants to get in touch with the dental practice, or maybe you get a copy of that Ultimate Mouth Manual book, or just follow up, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, we'd love to see you, and Matthew and Michelle, terrific doctors. It's great to be able to pass on a practice and know that they're carrying out the principles that they hold dear and I hold dear. And just give us a call at 321-259-8000. Tell us you heard us. You heard me on Helping Seniors of Brevard, and you'll be able to get the complete examination, including all x-rays, for $50, a $50 check to Helping Seniors of Brevard.
Yeah, it's a great way because it helps us as a little Florida nonprofit keep the wheels turning in all we do. But it's also a great way to keep things moving for you, so that you are, in fact, getting the best ideas about what you should do on that area as well. So thank you, Dr. Lee Sheldon, for joining us on this week's edition of Helping Seniors Radio. We gather each Wednesday right here on 90.3 FM WEJF, and we'll so look forward to seeing you back next week, right here, as they say, same channel, same time, right here on WEJF. So on behalf of Joe Steckler, our president and founder, and Nancy Deardorff, our operations director, and our entire little hardy but helpful Helping Seniors crew, thank you for joining us for today. And we look forward to seeing you next week, right back here on the radio.